How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing out a string that was actually sent to me by a subscriber, so I'm very interested to try it out. It's a string that actually a lot of people have commented I should try out, and this subscriber was very kind enough to send me a set. So today I'm trying out the Toroline Wasabi. Let's check it out. So the subscriber that sent me this set of the Toroline Wasabi, his name is Weinman. So thank you so much, Ken, for sending me this string. He also sent me a set of the Toroline Caviar, which I will test out in the future, but first I wanted to try out this Wasabi. And Ken has a stringing channel, and he also does stringing, racket stringing for people. So if any of you guys are interested, I didn't want to put any of his personal information on this channel, but Ken, maybe you can comment down below if you want some people to send you their rackets so you guys can get it strung by him. Thank you again, Ken, for sending me this string. So Toroline is not a huge company like Wilson, Babala, Luxlon, but the Wasabi is fairly popular, fairly famous. I actually only heard of this fairly recently, but a lot of people have commented, please try out Toroline strings. And by the way, if you guys want me to try out a string, if you have some connections or if you have some extra sets lying around, please feel free to reach out to me and send me these, because all of the things that I review on my channel, if they're not sent to me by a subscriber or a company, all of it comes out of my pocket, and YouTube doesn't really pay much. So honestly, it does get pretty expensive, especially if I'm trying out rackets. So if you want me to test something and if you have a set lying around, please send it to me. I love testing out what you guys want me to test out. It's just a little bit cost prohibitive. So thank you so much, Ken. And let's get into the Wasabi. So Wasabi comes in 3 colors. It comes in a pink, red, and a neon green. And obviously I was going to try it out in the neon green color, first of all, because it's called Wasabi. And second of all, it's a 4-sided square-shaped string. And when it comes to neon green 4-sided strings, what immediately comes to mind? Hyper-G. So I wanted to test it in the neon green, and I'm going to test it in the same racket that I usually test Hyper-G in to compare it to that to see if it is better or worse. I checked the Toroline website. There isn't really much information on this string. I can't find any special technologies or anything like that. It's relatively cheap at about $12 a set, which actually is basically the same price as Hyper-G. So this I will be comparing to Hyper-G. I'll give a little bit of my thoughts, but I'm expecting this to play somewhat lively. From what I've read, it is a little bit on the more soft, comfortable side. I like something a little bit firmer and crisper like Tour Bite, but so many people have recommended Wasabi to me that I am pretty excited to get this out on the court. Wasabi also only comes in 1 gauge as far as I could find, and it's the 123mm gauge, and that's fine. I like something around 120, but 123 I can definitely deal with. So I got the Wasabi strung up in my Babala Pure Strike 98 Project 17. This is the Gen 2 Wimbledon edition, and this is the racket that I tested the Hyper-G as well as the Hyper-G round. And because of the colorway, I will always test a neon green string in this racket. So I got it strung at 54 pounds, which is a couple of pounds tighter than I usually test strings in. But I realized that a lot of people like me to test strings that are actually a little bit softer, and I do like stiff strings. So I have decided to string my test strings for reviews a little bit tighter. So I usually string 53 or 54 pounds these days. So I strung the Wasabi at 54. So I'm excited to get this on the court. Many of you guys have told me to test this out. So without further ado, let's jump on the court. Let's test out Toroline Wasabi. But before that, if you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start with the pros of the Toroline Wasabi. From what I read online, I heard this string was pretty comfortable without being too mushy, and after hitting with it, I have to agree. This string is very comfortable without being too springy, although it is somewhat mushy. I'll get into that later. Comfort is not really a priority for me because I like the firm response I get from stiffer strings, so whenever someone asks me to review a soft poly, I'm a little hesitant. However, the Wasabi is in that sweet spot between comfort and response. I honestly would like it to be firmer, but for what it is, I enjoy the response I get from full swings. The Wasabi will inevitably be compared to Hyper-G because of the color and shape. To be honest, I feel like Hyper-G is a tad firmer and more control-oriented. The Wasabi actually leans more toward the power and comfort side. I found a decent amount of pop on ground strokes and serves. The string gets a decent amount of power without being too lively. The ball pocketing isn't great, but the ball comes off the strings with decent pace. In my opinion, comparing the Wasabi to Hyper-G isn't really a good comparison. I think the Wasabi plays closer to another neon green string, the Signum Pro Experience. I reviewed that string on my channel and it's a very soft and lively string that gets good pop. The Wasabi is a tad firmer than Experience and has sharper edges, but they are both in the realm of comfort and power polys. The Hyper-G is more in the control category. The spin potential with the Wasabi is also great. I think this would be a great string for someone who has a more vertical swing path and wants to impart even more spin to their ground strokes. I hit with a semi-western grip, so my forehands have some natural topspin, but I usually didn't have any issue bringing my aggressive forehands down inside the lines as long as I caught it cleanly. My backhand is fairly flat, so spin strings don't give me much help there, but the added power from the Wasabi gave my backhands decent pace. The serve is really where I felt the spin and power come alive. I don't have the fastest or spinniest serve, but I felt comfortable with all three of my primary serves and I could mix it up to keep my opponents guessing. The strings displace and snap back well on my kick serve. Compared to the RPM Hurricane, which was the last string I reviewed, I felt more string movement every time I hit a kick serve. Although you would think the RPM Hurricane and the AeroPro Drive would be a very spin-friendly combination, I actually got more spin from the Wasabi and Pure Strike combo because of the extra string movement. My flat and slice serves also had a bit more pace, resulting in my opponents struggling on the returns more. My slice serve also had good sliding action. I don't know which serve was the best for me with the Wasabi because all three worked well and I could mix up the placement and spins at will. The spin also worked very well on slices. My chip and charge strategy and offensive slices worked well and I felt comfortable approaching the net after a successful slice. Due to the softer construction, the Wasabi pockets the ball well on slices and I could redirect my shots with precision. Both directional and depth control felt exceptional with the Wasabi. The soft construction and grip provided by the Wasabi also assisted in my volley game. My serve and volley combo was working well for me and my transition volleys also felt good. It felt almost effortless to punch back low volleys. The power also helped me to put away high volleys and overheads easily, and that was appreciated. Because I don't have the longest reach or the biggest take back at net, I sometimes struggle to punch through volleys for winners. Because of this, I'm forced to rely more on placement for winning points at net. With the Wasabi, I didn't have to think as much about where I was going to hit because I knew as long as I caught it clean and punched through, the ball wasn't coming back. Overall, the comfort, power, and spin, especially on my service game, were the highlights of this playtest, but unfortunately there were some critical flaws I noticed with the Wasabi. So let's get into the cons of the Toroline Wasabi. The biggest issue I had with this string was the apparent lack of control from the baseline on full swings. I say apparent because when I was in a groove and catching the shot cleanly, I felt in complete control. But occasionally the Wasabi had some erratic launch angles that I couldn't keep inside the court. I had a similar experience with Hyper-G, but I felt much less comfortable taking big swings with the Wasabi, especially on returns. Every time I caught the return even slightly off center, the ball would go flying in a direction I didn't intend. It was very unpredictable on full swings, and unfortunately, this makes the Wasabi a string I couldn't take into a tournament. I just couldn't trust my aggressive ground strokes. This might not be an issue for someone who has more disciplined mechanics, but I like to swing away, especially on returns and approach shots, and I just had no confidence in my aggressive game. My defensive game was fine. In fact, I actually like playing defense and getting into long rallies more with the Wasabi because I felt I didn't need to swing as much to get the ball deep. But defense is not where I typically want to be, and when I decided to take a chance and swing out, I missed a lot of my ground strokes. Besides the return, I noticed some very unpredictable control on my backhand swing as well. To be fair, the Pure Strike is not the best for two-handed backhands, but I struggled hitting down the line backhands because I couldn't get the height control to hit over the high part of the net. Defensive outstretched backhands also found the net quite often. The Wasabi takes some of the flaws I have with Hyper-G and pushes them a bit further. The control and erratic trajectories is one area, the other area is the feel. I said this in my Hyper-G review, but I'm not a huge fan of the feel of Hyper-G. It feels mushy but at the same time firm. It is a very strange gray area and I wish it didn't teeter on the fence. The Wasabi also had a very similar feel and I couldn't get into a rhythm with this string because the sensation upon impact kept changing. It's hard to put into words, but the feel on ground strokes, volleys, touch shots, and serves felt very different from one another and I had a hard time finding my groove. The string bed plays somewhat mushy and dampened, although I wouldn't say it's springy. I didn't feel comfortable going for drop shots and this made my game rather one-dimensional. I didn't feel too comfortable taking full swings from the baseline either because of the inconsistent launch. I only felt really comfortable swinging 75% and rallying from the baseline. I had to be patient to win points with the Wasabi rather than be aggressive and hit passing shots. My front court game was also rather ineffective because I couldn't utilize my crafty angles, although volleying did feel much more steady and reliable than my ground strokes. And lastly, the Wasabi only comes in 1 gauge. Although 123mm is around the thickness I like, I think this string could benefit from a thicker gauge to get more control and consistency from the baseline. I would also add a 128mm if I were Toroline. So those are my thoughts on the Wasabi. It's not a bad string, but I feel it is inferior to Hyper-G and also has some of the same flaws, which is not my favorite poly to begin with. It provides good power and pop, but has a rather inconsistent string bed and feel, so it is not something I could use on a regular basis. So then, who is the Toroline Wasabi for? I think it's for players who want something like Hyper-G, good control and spin, but also wants a bit more comfort and power. I think this string is a bit too erratic for a super aggressive baseliner, so maybe it's more suited to a pusher slash counterpuncher that likes to redirect shots and wear down their opponents in a game of attrition. My serves were working very well for me, so Wasabi could be useful to a serve and volleyer or a doubles player. So thank you again, Ken, for sending me this string to test. I'm glad I finally got a chance to try the Wasabi because many viewers have asked me to try this string. I'm excited to try the Caviar next. Hopefully that plays more in line with what I like. So let me hear from all of you. What do you think of Wasabi? Also, what do you think of Caviar? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and give me some other Toroline recommendations. Thank you for watching this review of the Toroline Wasabi string right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.